Hey, we're live. Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Restore the Republic, the voice of the people who had enough of the corrupt judges, enough of the rogue cops, enough of the lawyers who twist the law and the politicians who trample it. This is a show that dares to ask what happened to the de jure American government and how do we get it back. I'm your host, Sheriff Andrew Wank on the unincorporated Richland County, Ohio. And every week we expose the lies, decode the legal traps, and empower you to reclaim what's rightfully yours. No fluff, no compromise, just facts. With me as always, Sheriff Adam Bonner on the unincorporated Summit County, Ohio. How's it going, Adam?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Doing good. Doing real good. I wanted to kind of stop for a moment and kind of thank everybody. All of our viewers, all the people that are watching now live and the ones that will watch it later. Just thank you. Thank you. Guys are doing good. You're sharing it. You're sharing the shit out of it. I like seeing it. I like the comments. If we can't answer your questions during the live, keep putting them in the comments. We'll get to them sooner or later on some of these replays on YouTube or Facebook. We try to answer them as best we can, and they're good questions, and we're trying to help everybody out. So thank you to everybody. Thanks for sharing this stuff. It's important.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say also here in Ohio, it's kind of like becoming election season here soon for governors and for some of these state attorneys and all the other bullshit positions they have. And I just think it's kind of funny. These guys dress up in their fancy suits and act like they're important, act like they know what the hell's going on, and they don't have a clue. Yeah. It's really a shit show. It's actually funny. And I just want to grab them by the shirt and go, what the hell's wrong with you? Don't you know anything? But anyways, yeah, we got, here in Ohio, we got a governor who's about 3 foot tall. He's a little squirrely pissant, Mike DeWine. He's worthless. And, we don't give a shit about the governor anyways, because they don't govern nothing over Americans. So we got him, and then we got Sherrod Brown, who, has been in politics his whole life, hasn't changed nothing, hasn't made anything better, but, he's on the trail again, promising all this shit, telling everybody he's going to make things better. It's hilarious. It is hilarious, Then we got a new guy in town, he's one of the up-and-comers. He's just a local businessman in outside of Columbus. His name's Casey Push. And, he seems like an all right guy, but he just has no clue that, this shit's, you need money, you need pull, you need people to help you out. It's all corrupt and it's all bullshit. We all know that, so he can go in, nothing's going to change. The powers that be at this time who think they're in power, they're pulling the strings, so we're going to take it over.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, there's my little rant. But anyways, we're going to get back into what we started with last episode. We were talking about the investigations that are rolling out. And this is basically part 2, a little more into it, So here we go. Yeah, we're just going to talk about traditional American common law processes. Emphasized evidence-driven investigations through sheriffs and grand juries. That's what it's all about. Evolving from colonial practices where nationals and citizens directly petitioned local peace officers for inquiries into public wrongs. Modern statutes maintain this core, but route most grand jury presentations through prosecutors. That's the problem here, prosecutors. They shouldn't be around. Contrasting historical direct sheriff to jury access in many counties. This expanded a framework for any county, incorporating historical contrast, simple examples of pathways to the adjutant general's office for reform. For post-jury findings, we're going to get it to them. They're going to take it down and they're going to kick these guys' ass, I guess.
Ideally, this has nothing to do with U.S. citizens. It's an American prerogative. There's historical footing there as far as precedents from the past. So who knows? We're going to do our job. That's for sure. So, you're talking about historical foundations versus, these modern practices. If we look at the colonial and early republic era, like pre-1900, Sheriffs, as elected constitutional officers, directly convened grand juries or presented citizens' testimonies in the form of affidavits for immediate review. They would basically get this stuff, mouth to ear or, through paperwork, and they would go start conducting whatever it is they needed to do, and they would get it right before the grand jury. So this was rooted in English common law first, where the hue and cry summoned communities to pursue suspects. So this means that, if you've seen something and you were of, age and capacity to do something, you probably ought to, because you could probably get in trouble if you didn't. Usually that would be one of the first questions, what'd you do to stop them? What'd you do to stop her? Did you intervene?
We talked about it last episode,
Right. Hey, Bell. So then, constables served as process servers and local watchmen, basically, staying near courthouses while deputies handled rural patrols. No paramilitary structures existed back then. Uniforms only featured, our silver stars and civic badges, not ranks, nothing military about it. You get into the 20th and 21st century shift. So professionalization posts, like 1930s, introduced police academies with quasi-military training, where they drill basically, and they have like a rank structure like sergeant, captain, corporal, these military type things.
Yeah.
So this is obviously influenced by military surplus programs like the 1033 transfers. So grand juries now typically receive prosecutor curated evidence, information, prosecution by way of information, instead of on presentment or, a proper indictment with the proper due course of law. And then, though nationals and citizens can petition independently, typically in states like Texas or Ohio, constables persist in fewer than 20 states currently, often defunded amid municipal police expansions. That's pretty much what's going on now. I mean, I know of, I'm friends with a couple down in Texas. Up here, haven't seen any, haven't heard of any for a long time. I hear that there is a few, but, I don't know. That's news to me. Haven't met them.
Well, you know what? Last episode, we were going over that paramilitary posturing by these law enforcement officers and the sheriff and these commercial sheriffs. That's what this is all about. These guys are being quasi-military. They have military supplies. They have military gear. They have military insignias, captain's bars, sergeant's bar, chevrons, lieutenant's bars. Some of them wear 3 or 4 stars like a damn military general. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is the shit we're going to stop. This is the shit that needs to stop. We don't need an occupied force in our counties. Our entry point for all American state nationals and American state citizens, transforming vague suspicion into credible lawful evidence packets that compel sheriff's actions under both traditional law or traditional common law duties, as well as modern de facto statutory obligations. This includes full protocol templates, checklists, historical contrasts, and multiple examples to ensure any concerned number of the general public can execute it properly. Recognizing it as familiar from colonial hue and cry petitions and today routine citizen complaint forms. We need the public. We need Americans to start gathering evidence.
Absolutely.
But it also, Adam, we were talking earlier, there was a few people that asked those questions. How can we help? Or how we do have evidence. What should we do with it? Well, everybody just needs to hold on to their evidence, keep it secure, because this only works when we start getting our assemblies going. In your counties, you need to start assembling, filling out your positions, filling out your court positions, but definitely electing a sheriff to get the ball rolling.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to kickstart your county, to get your county assemblies going. It doesn't just have to be, the big foot of trying to get your state and all of those committees and stuff like that up and going. I mean, you can start smaller if you got enough people in a county. It's really not that hard.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
It's all right. Hey, I do think though, for most people, there is a state assembly and county assemblies. Now, what everybody should be doing is trying to bring them up together, or the best you can do. If you can't, even if your states already have their positions filled, that's when you can start your county. Start really getting at it.
Right. Yeah, it never ends. Phone's constantly ringing. Okay, so getting into historical context for the people's evidence gathering. Traditional practice, colonial era, the 1800s, free men and women directly presented testimonies in the form of an affidavit or affirmations, or even presentments to sheriffs or constables who treated them as immediate calls to assemble posses or convene juries. No prosecutor or intermediary existed. Evidence was simple: eyewitness accounts, physical marks, or stolen goods. This empowered communities against tyrants. As in the 1760s, regular movement where, like for instance, North Carolina nationals and citizens documented tax abuses for grand jury review. And you guys can do that too. I mean, we got people all over the place going against, property tax because taxation is theft. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do a little research and figure out that we shouldn't be, getting excise anything. So that's just a tidbit.
Well, a modern contrast to what Adam was saying is statutes require written, sworn complaints with specifics to avoid frivolous claims, but nationals and citizens retain the right to petition and trigger investigations. Prosecutors filter for grand jury in most states, unlike direct access historically. That's the problem. These damn prosecutors, they're deciding what they present. They're deciding what to hold back. They're deciding what witnesses come and go. They're deciding all this shit, and it's bogus. That's not what's supposed to be going on. Definitely not in common law in our grand jury system. No charge in core principle. Evidence drives action. That's a big one. Evidence drives the action. Hearsay does not. And that's what we've been talking about. People.
Why does hearsay not? Even in
information. What was that?
I said, why does hearsay not drive action? Why is it not supposed to? Because even in their law, on their statutory side, it even covers civil and criminal. Articles 801 through like 806, there's a whole thing that protects you from hearsay. So basically anything that doesn't have documentary or physical evidence to support a claim, or, no injured party or competent witness, sworn affidavit from an injured party, they're not supposed to move against you without those things, or else that's an abusive process. So that seems to be what they like to do to people up here, people who don't know their rights and they don't know that they're being unlawfully converted or forced into a legal process. And that's one of my favorite things to talk about. Somebody could go to the police right now and make a false police report and say that you beat them up, and here they beat their face with the sock and an orange.
Yeah.
It looks compelling, right? They even took pictures of it. The only problem is there's no witnesses, no neighbors that heard yelling and screaming. There's no competent witness. Sometimes they get people to lie for them. This happens. It's very common. Recent statistic came out that 97.4% of the other gender would prefer actually being incarcerated than admit to fault, whether it be adultery or just that they were wrong in an argument. So, hate to say it, but it does look that way here in the West. I don't know. I mean, maybe Iran, Lebanon, they got those type of issues pretty bad too, but I don't know here. I mean, it's out of hand.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, so that would be my piece then. The Sheriff's Investigative Authority, as the county's chief peace officer or peacekeeping official, expanding citizen evidence into full probe under traditional common law mandates. sheriff as conservator of the peace, and modern statutes like state sheriff codes requiring diligent inquiry into public complaints, contrasting historical posses with today's deputy-led fact-finding to ensure thoroughness without overreach. Problem with that is that it always leads to some type of overreach. So historical context for sheriff's investigation, traditional practices, colonial era, 1800s, sheriffs led posses. These could be people that were part of, national jurisdiction border defense for, city, county type areas. They could call these guys up to act as their posse if need be, if they needed to go do something, to bring about justice. And so that was just one of the mechanisms. Other than that, they could implement, and train as many deputies as necessary to handle whatever it was that they had going on in that area that they served over. So, basically these posses are community volunteers. Like I said, they could have been militia type groups.
It could be your buddies down at the local drink hole.
Yeah, pretty typical historically. You go into the local pub and everybody there's trained, to be part of the posse. So, anyhow, these volunteers could be used for rapid probes, interrogating suspects on site, seizing evidence like weapons and documents. No warrants were needed for peace breaches. Results went straight to a grand jury presentment, as in like the 1770s Boston investigations of British overreach. Constables assisted rural sweeps, keeping sheriff's courthouses, centralized, and secure.
Yeah, I did. You talked about no warrants needed for peace breaches. That would be a no, arrest without warrant.
Right.
Basically, I would just wanted everybody, because we've went over this a lot as sheriffs and in our education and our training, to be arrested without warrant takes a lot of being definite. There's total evidence. You actually have to almost see the person committing a crime.
Right.
Breaching the peace isn't just being loud or, stuff like that. That we can't come and arrest you for that stuff. We could come and say, hey, will you be quiet? Or, but we're all, sovereign here. This is a republic form of government. Your rights are your rights.
So that's kind of like the equivalent
to actually be arrested without warrant.
It's kind of like the equivalent nowadays where they would say disturbing the peace or lewd and vulgar type conduct.
But that's what I'm saying. They take that a little too. Any little thing, and you're getting a ticket or you're getting arrested without a warrant for something that's really not that big of a deal.
That's a false.
Just things we got to get used to.
Yeah, false imprisonment.
Freedom is scary. A lot of people ain't used to being free.
Yeah.
We got to learn how to be free.
That's pretty much what it is, though. I mean, it's a false imprisonment when they do that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Absent a crime, absent an injured party, no witness. I mean, they can't just make stuff up and go, hey, I seen you as I was approaching. And, it's like, we how many videos? We've reviewed thousands and thousands of videos of those type of interactions that led to, multiple thousands of dollar lawsuits that were won. So we definitely don't want to be doing that, because the taxpayers shouldn't be the ones being held liable for that. It should be those peace officers, because they need better training and they should know better.
Yeah.
It's common sense. You don't violate people's rights, because you got an ego problem.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Well, here's some modern contrast for basically those traditional practices of sheriff-led posses Adam was talking about. Statutes, formalized processes. This is the contrast. Statutes, formalized processes, like Miranda rights. Now, is anyone really? No. We talk about this a lot. We laugh about it. if you ever been stopped or arrested and these law enforcement officers read you your Miranda rights, you should look them in the face and say, who the hell is Miranda? And why do I want her rights?
I've had bad experiences with Mirandas myself.
Yeah. Why would I want Miranda's rights when I'm an American and I have my own rights? Unalienable,
Exactly.
by the way.
Exactly. Yeah, God-given inherent.
Tell Miranda to stick it. Sheriffs retain broad investigative power, digital tools like body cams and databases, and those replaced posses, basically. Kind of the modernization. Collaboration with prosecutors and the adjutant general required for military ties. The Corps changed and it uncovered the truth via evidence. So, that's what we're talking about. We need evidence, and I do think that the digital body cams have helped.
They do.
Yeah, but you have to do it, the right way. You can't be like, we see these videos on YouTube all the time with cops turning their cameras off, muting their cameras, so that they're basically, ineffective. They're hiding something. When you have to do something like that, you're hiding.
Right. Well, I mean, that could be tampering with evidence if it's obviously information that would vindicate you or, exonerate you.
Yeah.
Then you got yourself a Brady v. Maryland there using their, process. Over here, you get hung for that type of stuff. So that's why we're trying to offer, amnesty's gone. But, we will work with people. We will try to educate. We know the severity of that is, it's not very becoming to think about that type of stuff. But, unfortunately, we're going back to that time. I mean, there's just too many people running rogue, doing whatever they want. And, the people are suffering because of it. Our kids, our generations are suffering.
Well, real quick, Adam, I see an Eric Lim or somebody in the comments asking about Logan, Ohio. Eric, one of us will respond to that comment later on after the episode. We'll get with you somehow.
Right.
All right. Well, the handover from sheriff investigation to prosecutor and grand jury, positioning the prosecutor as curator of evidence while preserving citizen and sheriff input under modern statutes, contrasting direct colonial sheriff to jury presentments. That's what we're talking about. The middleman is the prosecutor for them in the de facto world. For us, it's evidence, testimonies in form of an affidavit, straight to the sheriff, straight to the grand jury. There is no middleman. In today's prosecutor-led sessions to ensure due process without diluting community voice. That's the whole point. The community's got the voice, not the prosecutor.
Yep. So, that leads into historical context for prosecutors to grand jury handover. So, obviously, that didn't exist traditionally. Traditional practice, colonial to early republic era, sheriffs or nationals and citizens presented evidence directly to grand juries convened in open court. Basically, they go in, wait their turn, step up to the podium in, the order that they came, and present their claim and go, basically.
Hey, Adam, real quick. I just wanted to, I like to tell people this, and I guess I haven't said it much here this often, but, our courts, our court system, the common law system is basically like seeing Judge Judy on TV, besides her being the judge, there's the jury, but you just go in and you're telling the jury what happened. You made a claim, you're explaining them to what happened, and the person you made the claim against is standing there too. They get to say their piece and the jury decides, that's how this stuff works. And if you have evidence, yeah,
it's not what they want, because that takes away the power from, the perceived power, this perceived judicial, whatever, from these non-judicial persons. I'm trying my hardest, that could have been a tangent. All right. So anyhow, they don't want you to have a jury trial. They don't want the jury to be the one that makes the decision. They want to steamroll you. They want to profit off of you. They want to put you away. It's all a profit mechanism. And so,
Well, you know what? Hey, Adam, real quick. They will offer you a jury trial, but it's not the same as a trial by jury.
right,
Yeah.
of your peers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that would be an open court with no prosecutor filter, no interference from some, friend of the court, not my friend, not your friend, probably, colluding and conspiring with the guy in the black robe on the bench. So that guy, those people didn't exist. So jurors, questioned witnesses live, like in the flesh back then. Issuing presentments, accusations, or ignoramuses, with no action or with action. That's why we had our deputies there. So, as in 1735, the Zenger trial, where jurors, overrode Crown prosecutors. Modern contrast, prosecutors, district attorneys, county attorneys, city attorneys control presentations per statutes, but not grand juries, that retain independence to subpoena extras. All nationals and citizens, I would imagine we're talking about state citizens, can petition directly. Sheriffs recommended, via memos. So secrecy protects witnesses, obviously, unlike public colonial sessions. And, that can also be used as a mechanism against you, because they could have a secret witness that could be an informant, or they could just be making somebody up fictionally, saying, oh, well, so-and-so said this and this and this, and, we got you dead to rights. And, they're sitting there questioning you. And it's like, dude, if you had something, I would be behind bars.
Yeah.
Right. If it was that cut dry, you got me dead to rights, that would be it. I would have been tried by now. Right. You would have presented everything you have. We wouldn't still be sitting here talking.
So, hey, I really liked how you explained about the jurors. The
right.
jurors can ask questions and get, they can pull the truth out of these people.
Or their foreman.
That's the great thing about this common law court.
Yeah, they could get as many questions as necessary to the foreman, and the foreman could ask those questions.
Yeah.
And ultimately the goal is 100% guilty conviction, or I don't have enough, therefore we can't move forward. Kick them loose. So that's pretty much the way it should be. I don't see why we've gotten away from that, other than the profit mechanism and
money.
No oversight.
Money. And we talk about that all the time too, the Chris system. These judges have a retirement, and they get the retirement money by how many cases they win, basically. That's why they have a 98% win rate.
They get kickbacks. All of them do. The attorneys, the prosecutors, they're
Not
all.
to mention all these damn judges, lawyers, attorneys, they're all, God, I was going to say the F word. They're all foreign agents. I guess I did say the F word. They're foreign actors.
Force of law.
And you know what? That's another thing all you Americans out there need to do. Get down in your court system and start finding out if these guys have FARA registrations. And if they haven't filed a FARA registration, make them, because they're foreign actors.
Mm-hmm.
They're English. I think ICE needs to come in and pick up some of these damn judges and send them back to England where they belong. That's what I'm talking about.
That's not a bad idea. The more I think about it,
Well, England probably wouldn't want them, so we're stuck.
Yeah, damn it.
Well, grand jury outcomes, transforming investigative evidence into actionable justice, true bills of indictment, no bills with police reports or referrals. Under traditional common law, where juries issued presentments independently, contrasted with modern prosecutor-guided but juror-empowered sessions, can still drive the systematic reform like constable restoration or rank bands. We need to get our constables back. We've talked about that. Each county should have a constable right next to the sheriff. And they're one. I think we were talking about them last week, how they kind of stay around the courthouse.
Yeah, I got 2 interviews.
They do their public duty, but yeah,
I'm sure you'll get a couple good candidates down there soon. But I got a couple up here that have been asking, so we'll see how that goes. And obviously, I'll bring that back and let you know how it goes. So So we're talking about historical context for grand jury outcomes. Traditional practice, colonial to early republic era. Grand juries operated as community watchdogs, issuing presentments, citizen-initiated accusations or ignoramuses, no action, directly binding sheriffs to enforce without judges. The Zenger trial, 1735, nullified sedition law via no true bill. Juries probed tyrants, asking lots of questions, talking to maybe their neighbors, friends, family, basically putting the pieces together as they should, asking all the right types of questions to figure out who they're dealing with. They would also probe corporations and officials, any type of official in any capacity. Uh, you know, there was none of this, oh, well, I got immunity, I got quality. No, in good behavior, you have immunity. And I don't even, trust that. So, as in, like the 1760s, the Stamp Act resistances, modern contrasts, you get into statutes that codify secrecy and prosecutor control. It's what I've dealt with up here for the past 10 years, prosecutor control. But jurors retain subpoena power, and they can demand witnesses beyond DA suggestions. Outcomes include reports, non-binding recommendations in 30 plus states. No bills, they don't preclude civil actions, without it. So, yeah, Mayor Corletta Davis. Yeah, there's a lot of tyrants out there. So we're just basically trying to bring this information forward, what we're working on, the investigations, and how things are going to be operating when it comes time for them to be tried. And like I said, many times before, I don't feel bad about it. We've been on here doing this for a couple years now, and, it is what it is.
Yeah. I really gave a full faith effort to work with these guys,
Mm-hmm.
They just don't see it the way it's supposed to be. So sorry.
Well, like I said, they're just not, the people at the top are not giving the notice that they've been given down. It's supposed to go from the top down, from the sea inland. And, when you're working these things, trying to undo the wrong that's been done, you got to start back at, the inception. So that's what a lot of people don't realize about, Reconstruction. You got to undo all of the doing that's in the international sea jurisdiction back onto the land and then down to the national soil jurisdiction on the counties.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but, once you comprehend the history and, the different jurisdictions and how all that works, it's not engineering. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, the post-indictment trial by jury under American common law principles, where qualified jurors act as, they're basically the judge. The jurors are. They're the ones that make the decisions. They're the ones that make the law. They're the ones that can nullify the law, any law. Both of facts and law. Contrasting statutory jury trials. We talked about that. As Americans, we have trial by jury. The de facto system has jury trials where the judge instructs what laws he wants, what laws go through, with traditional full jury sovereignty, enabling nullification to dissolve repugnant policies like paramilitary policing or corporate overreach. That's what our courts, the American common law courts, have the capability to do, the nullification of all these bullshit laws. Well, they're not even laws, they're statutes, codes, ordinances. They're law for their employees of the corporation. And nobody, I know you guys that are watching probably understand this, but these jackboot thugs have no idea. I had to call jackboot thugs. That's from my boy out there in California that he's a First Amendment auditor. I forget his name. So he's calling these cops jackboot thugs.
Oh yeah, yeah. That guy's interesting. I like watching his stuff. Well, we got another guy that's ex. I believe was he a trooper or a cop? I think he was a cop for several years, and then he became an attorney. He was a prosecutor, and then he's in private practice now. But he has his own podcast. He has a lot of really good breakdowns of interactions that take place on the side of the road or at people's homes.
Yeah.
Really good guy. I'll get his information. I like watching his stuff too. What is he called? Southern Draw Law, I think.
Yeah. Southern Draw Law.
Good guy. I like the way he breaks stuff down, because you're getting it from, a police mind to a DA mind to an attorney mind and criminal defense mind. It's pretty awesome. So are we talking about, context for trial by jury?
Yeah.
So traditional practice in common law era, juries since Magna Carta, 1215, judge law and facts, nullifying unjust statutes. 1670, Penn's case acquitted for, preaching sans license. 1735, Zenger nullified sedition. Colonials impaneled Freeman juries for presentments, turn trials. Sheriffs enforced verdicts directly, dissolving offending offices or ordinances. That's a lot of kind of where we're headed now, with the juror training. That's what we're working on getting back to.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wish everyone listening or going to listen to reach out to your state or your county, get your assemblies going, join. Once you become a state national, you're pretty much automatically a juror. That's part of your duty. Mm-hmm. But being a juror is a big responsibility. You have to know the common law. This isn't the de facto bullshit and all these code statutes and ordinances. Just because you're you're in a car going over the speed limit, you don't get in trouble for that. And these are the things you have to know as a juror. American common law is pretty easy, really. You just don't hurt anyone or their property. And you're in there.
Do no harm. Do no harm. It's that simple. And don't destroy people's property.
Exactly.
The brother's keeper's clause and, love thy neighbor. All those simple things apply. God's law is a big part of that. And, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. It's
Bingo.
Real simple.
Yep. Well, the modern contrast to what Adam was talking about, the common law era, statutes limit nullification. Right. Instructions like U.S. versus Dowdy in 1972, but the de facto power persists. Jurors acquit freely. Common law courts via assemblies restore full sovereignty. Statutory trials use 12 peers, but assemblies qualified their state nationals, excluding corporate jurors. So that's a big difference between the de jure and the de facto. We have Americans in our juries, the jurors, the jury pool, your peers, the people that know you, your community.
Yeah, they should be
these corporate juries. You got Joe Blow, one's an alcoholic, one just got beaten by his wife, one, all kinds of craziness. You don't know who they are. They don't know you. And they're instructed, by the way, by the judge.
Yeah, it's
what they can and can't do.
Colorable instruction, practicing law from the bench. They're supposed to sit there basically and, be a referee. The jurors are the ones that are supposed to create the law, make the judgment. And you got these guys sitting up there looking over, shooting daggers. You'll do what I tell you to do. That's fiction.
Hey, Adam, Sean Poston just got in the chat, says the dude's name I was talking about, the jackboot thugs, is Chili from Constitutional Law Scholar. Yeah, Chili.
Yeah, I've seen him. Yeah, he's interesting. The guy that goes around with the pamphlets and records. I could have swore that guy got in trouble. Well, I mean,
he was in jail for a little bit.
But, yeah, he should have a pretty nice suit out of that.
You got a jackboot put in his rear end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy is very knowledgeable, but at the end of the day, these guys are going to team up, and you're going to get the wrong one eventually, and they're just going to steamroll you.
Yeah.
He had an attorney too. I wouldn't have had an attorney for that. I mean, I would have stood on my square, and I wouldn't have had anybody.
Well, you know what? Hey, I like the guy. I love what he's doing. I just don't like how some of these guys, they're trying to push and cause a little tension. You know what I mean?
Provoke, yeah.
I don't think that's what it should be about, but that's his channel. He can do whatever he wants. He's a free man.
Well, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to bring it to everybody's attention that there is not de-escalation training for all agencies and departments across the country. That's one of the big takeaways, is that he does provoke them, but he provokes them with the truth and law.
Yeah.
And their the rules, their policies that they're supposed to follow, and then he gigs them on them when they're wrong. And it does provoke them to an extent. That ended up, got him jammed up. But what are you going to do?
Yeah.
He's still out here doing it. So
yeah.
I'll get to your question, Danielle, in a bit. So we're talking about escalation to the ATAG. The ATAG is the Adjutant General. For the state would be, the state National Guard. I don't know of any listing for the reserve components here. I would imagine they probably got one too. But if the military ties implicated, guard training, police, sheriff transmits, jury findings, the TAG response protocol would be to review for state military code violations. Reform would be, halt trainings, clawback equipment, post-nullification power if juries nullify. This would deem parliamentary posture wartime unlawful and peacetime, during peacetime. TAG issues directive limiting corporate police to cities, affirming sheriff TAG concurrent jurisdiction over county peace. Hence, sheriffs enforce via ouster orders. Anybody know what ouster means? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody know what an ouster is? It's a beautiful thing. So, anyhow, from these ouster orders, escalation to the Adjutant General, the state's top military officer overseeing National Guard and state defense, when investigations uncover military ties like improper training, equipment transfers, or rank misuse by local law enforcement, positioning the ATAG as a reform lever post-grand jury or jury nullification to reel in corporate police overreach while affirming sheriff primacy. That's quite the mouthful, but basically sheriff summoned militia or invasion only, nullified standing armies via juries, and Shays Rebellion, 1787, where local juries checked militia overreach. So, man, that was a lot.
Yeah, but that's what, you know what? That is the bottom line of what we're talking about here. We need the people, we need ourselves gathering this evidence of these military code violations. Basically, these officers, these LEOs, commercial sheriffs are wearing military insignia. They're posturing like the military. They have militarized vehicles. They have militarized weapons. And they are acting as a standing military on our counties. So, that's what the review's for. And the reform is to halt these freaking joint trainings of the damn military and the police acting together, and once these guys are caught and we have the evidence and they get found guilty, we're going to claw back their equipment. We're taking it away from them.
Yeah, I got evidence anymore. That in my own city. Got it in my neighboring cities too, and I know the units that offered the training. So
yeah, it's freaking crazy. Yeah. Occupied force during peacetime.
Exactly. That's what they don't get. That's the piece that they don't get. They don't get that training in their Lieber Code training. So basically, if you think about recalling somebody who's in a vacated office, they shouldn't be there anyways. like the jokers that they are. When the sheriff comes in and pulls an ouster, basically you can look at that as like recalling somebody. You go through a proper recall or nullification process, out of there.
You've been
Ouster.
ousted.
Yep. Recall, ouster.
I like it.
Yep. All right. So,
Well, I'm going to give the historical context for the Adjutant General's escalation. Traditional practice in colonial to early republic, militia laws, the 1792 Militia Act placed state adjutants under governors as coordinators of citizens' posses, distinct from sheriff's peacekeeping, never blending them with corporate or municipal forces. Sheriffs summoned militia for invasions only. They nullified standing armies via juries, as in Shays Rebellion. You were talking about that.
Yep.
With local juries checked militia overreach. So that's what we're talking about. Nullifying some of these laws and stuff to get these standing armies off our counties, off our states. And the sheriff, before he would summon militia, which I think summoning the militia would only be pretty much in a basic rebellion or some kind of natural disaster, where you really need a lot of help. Other than that, the sheriff has his posse in their counties.
Right. Exactly. That's all I was going to touch on.
Yeah.
So modern contrast would be the tags managed guard under state codes, 32 USC subsection 314. This includes the 1033 program transfers to police. So post-nullification, tags issue directives halting improper collaborations. Unlike historical direct posse disbands, sheriffs retain concurrent jurisdiction. Tag defers to them in county peace matters per posse comitatus principles. This weaponizes tag authority for reform, ensuring jury will translate to corporate dissolution, traditional militia checks updated for modern overreach. Securing sheriff-led peace. That's the initiative here, to get back to sheriff-led peace. Real sheriffs, not these commercial people that got collaborative agreements and get kickbacks and incentives.
Yeah, that's something that, that's important, because I think a lot of the audience, maybe they're, because we get a lot of questions about it. They're not aware that, you do have a sheriff, a so-called sheriff on your county right now, but he's a commercial sheriff. He's a U.S. citizen, number one, which means he's a foreigner. Number two, like Adam said, they have collaborative agreements because he works for a corporation. Their job is to make money and to defend the corporation, not the people. That's
no, Julie. They would reach out to the sheriff, and then the sheriff would call a posse if need be to defend the matter. If it was an emergency for like border defense type stuff, then yeah, if there would be like a militia type thing involved.
Yeah. All right. Enforcement and superior concurrent general jurisdiction. Sheriffs and the Attorney General hold primacy. Sheriff's de jure county guardian and the Attorney General, or why don't I say Attorney General? The Adjutant General oversees state military interfaces. Joint authority model. Disruptions. If there's disruptions, sheriffs call the Adjutant General for backup if corporate police resist. So that's what once we get these investigations going and stuff, these guys need to know their duty. If these police, LEOs, corporate commercial sheriffs resist, the Adjutant General's duty is to get in there and take them down. And the reforms are dissolve offending units and restore our constables back to us.
I see Zen Guardian as a statement: a sheriff is a constitutional officer created by state law. That's post 1913, not prior to. So that's after the commercialization leading up to, our big bankruptcy thing that took place in 1933.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. Constitutional sheriffs, if you're a U.S. citizen, you cannot be constitutional because you're enforcing statutes, codes, and ordinances, which are not law.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
this
when American
establishes the
common law,
sheriff. And what's that?
I was going to say, when American common law went away and statutes, acts, and codes overtook, the commercialization of the country took place in that system. That's when, Reeves, us basically went away.
Yeah. Well, this establishes the sheriff and the adjutant general as holders of superior concurrent general jurisdiction over all county matters disrupting peace or sovereignty, enforcing grand jury trials outcomes by dissolving corporate police overreach, restoring traditional offices like constables, and maintaining unified oversight, contrasting fragmented modern agency silos with historical unified sheriff militia command. That's what we're talking about.
So they would like to know, how do you contact a land and soil jurisdiction sheriff or national soil jurisdiction sheriff? Well, you got to have, assemblies in your counties established to elect, your common law sheriff. You got to have a state assembly that could get you the information to people that are on your county if you're joining and getting papered up, and you find out that you got others on your county. If you have somebody who wants to step up, be it the Last Man Standing Act, or they want to be elected, if you have 2 or more people on a county that are status corrected, you can go that route and hold an election. You got to go through the proper process. You got to post that you're going to have an election for 30 days. There's got to be 30 days notice. There's got to be 30 days notice afterwards, minimum. Back in the day, they used to do 2 weeks and 2 weeks in the newspaper, posting bulletins all over the town.
Yeah, I see Marcus saying, who certifies the vote? Well, Marcus, if your state is standing,
Sergeant at Arms.
If you have your state together, your state assembly, as a county, when you're having your sheriff's election, on your state, you will have a sergeant at arms, marshal at arms, or committees. Here in Ohio, we have a election committee. So we had an election committee chairman and the marshal at arms certify the vote in our county.
Right.
And they get recorded, published, and then, like Sheriff Adam was saying, you put it in the paper and run it in an ad for 30 days in your county to let the public know the results of your election.
Right.
Makes it law.
Yep. A lot of newspapers are playing games recently, but there's other ways. There's other platforms that you can use to get it done, to publish something. So, if that does happen for any of you guys, if a newspaper won't let you put your governmental notice, reach out to us, and we'll plug you in with a place that will get it recorded for you, because screw them and screw that. So, historical context for superior, concurrent, and general jurisdiction. Traditional practice, common law era. Sheriffs held absolute county authority as chief conservators of the peace, summoning militia under adjutant oversight for posses. No corporate police existed then. Post-nullification, 1670s, jury acquittals. Sheriffs immediately disbanded offending groups, as in Whiskey Rebellion, where federal marshals deferred to local sheriffs. Concurrent jurisdiction meant sheriff primacy with posse militia backup. The modern contrast, statute fragmented authority, municipal police, state police, federal task force, all these private groups that get federal monies and they don't really do shit, but have a meeting once a week or month, and that type of thing. Basically the sheriff retain constitutional supremacy. I'm not sure if they're referring to us historically, or if they're talking about post. Well, it says in contrast, so they must be talking post 1913. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Contrast is a funny word, because you have to be thinking ahead when you say it. Like if you're speaking from the past context, it's going to be talking about, what happens later on after the fact, to some extent. So, yeah, post nullification. Sheriff tag partnership is restored, overriding corporate contracts per public policy. So, do you want to talk about the public laws and the policies that our fiduciary put out a few years ago? And, it's public law now. A lot of states ratified it.
Yeah, I think every state. Well, there was only one that didn't. I think, or I don't know how that worked, but maybe they didn't vote on it. That's what it was. But anyways, yeah, 3 public laws. The first one was about money, lawful money. Another one was about registering of babies. What was the third one? It's been so long since I've looked at them.
And it's talking about unlawful conversion, basically. That we're not to be tried. It was talking about unlawful conversion and barratry, and that we're not to be tried in their tribunals, or bothered at all.
Yeah.
So, and if that happens, then, I think there was some language referring to hangings.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hey, you know what? I'm seeing a lot of great questions in the comments. And like I told you, we can't answer them all right now. But if you guys remember your questions, because I think here next week sometime we're going to have a big Christmas finale, a big Q&A where you just ask anything you want. And we're going to fit it to you. Hopefully have some other people on, that can give everybody the answers. So be looking forward to that. Well, this closes the loop with structured feedback mechanisms and continued citizen monitoring, ensuring transparency and enforcement so that people see justice delivered. That's what we want. That's what this being an American is all about. Transparency. People want to know what's going on, why it's going on. They want to see justice. They want to see results. No more, backroom deals where nothing ever happens. And, a lot of people, you hear them, oh, yeah, he's friends of the judge or he's friends of these police. The crap don't matter anymore. If the jury says you're guilty, it's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Contrasting colonial town criers announces verdicts with modern public dashboards and assembly oversight to sustain reforms against recidivism. So basically, back in the day, they would go out and announce the verdicts in front of the courthouses.
So I see a post about. I see a post from Donald Brunn about Tanawa and Jessica Saxton's, thing that they got going on, Justice Without Limits. That's led by people that are still operating in the de facto, though. That's not what we're doing. We support them.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they talk about all the emolument violations, and I'll be supportive as I can, for that initiative. The only issue is that they're fighting a well-oiled machine, and they just don't got a lot of faith in, a couple people. I mean, they got thousands and thousands of affidavits too. But the problem with that is how many of those do you think are going to get reviewed by the Supreme Court? Probably slim to, maybe a box. I don't know. We'll see. But, getting back to this, the historical context for feedback and monitoring, traditional practices, common law era, sheriffs posted verdicts on courthouse doors or via, broadsides. The assemblies, town meetings audited compliance quarterly. So basically they would hold a meeting, churches, town hall meetings, and they basically figure out if things were in compliance or if they weren't working or not. They try to figure out, where they got a loose, link in the chain, fix it. And then grand jury presentments were, read publicly. So noncompliance triggered new posses, as in 1760s, regulator audits, where nationals and citizens tracked tax collectors, and for reforms post nullification. So
they track their asses down.
Yeah, and if there was any issues, they would find the closest tree somebody always had rope with them, and if you didn't like what was happening and you wanted to keep rebelling and fighting against it, or if you didn't like a sitting president, you were in an assembly meeting and you said something derogatory about him, guess what happened to that guy? Unlike today, where people just talk shit openly about the people in Congress or the sitting president. Now, we know this is the CEO of a corporation, and, he's not our president for the American government, but people used to get strung up for saying that type of stuff, and look at how lax it is nowadays. Complete shit show.
Well, hey, the modern contrast to what Sheriff Adam was just talking about, statutes require records retention. They usually have 5 to 10 years for complaints, in some of these statutes. But proactive feedback is rare. Digital portals and FOIA requests fill the gaps. Assemblies restore community audits. That's the contrast. The assemblies restore community audits. We need that. Sheriffs publish and redact summaries per open records laws, empowering ongoing vigilance without constant reinvestigation. So we want to get the juries, hand out the order, the law, the nullification, whatever it is, and the sheriffs and his posse, or the sheriffs and his deputies, enact what the juries have come up with. And that's the bottom line.
I was thinking of a good comeback for if they bring up this Miranda chick, if they're trying to Mirandize you as an American.
Yeah.
And, my thought is, this Miranda broad that you're talking about, she's something that you're supposed to speak to U.S. citizens about, not Americans. We get due course of law. We don't get Mirandized. We had God-given unalienable rights and inherent rights. And, as long as you stay on track with that. But, Miranda's been suspended for a long time, as far as what I know, just like the constitutions and what have you.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I think that's about all we got for today. We don't we're trying to keep it a little more exciting, although these last 2 episodes have been about what is going on with our investigations, what we're going to be doing. We're trying to let the public know what is expected. We want you guys to start thinking about that, thinking about the posturing these LEOs, the sheriffs are doing, because they're acting paramilitary. We need evidence for you. You need evidence for your county sheriff, right? And not the commercial sheriff, your county reeve,
not the commercial guy. Yeah.
So, anyways, I want to scrolling on the screen. I want you guys to check those sites out. pktfnews.org. That is the Peacekeeping Task Force. They have a lot of information on there for you to go through, and possible sites and places that you can look at. Or claimyourinheritance.info. That's got a lot of good information on there. And for anyone looking for paperwork to paper up to become an American again, this standup.land is the place to go. I heard they got a paper generator, a document generator over there that you basically just have to fill in your specific information. And I think Karen Scalf over there in North Carolina is the founder of that. Very smart, brilliant woman. She'll help you out. Mm-hmm. So check those out. And we also have, if anybody would like to donate, we have a Cash App. It's APC, $APC 140 for anybody that would like to donate. That'd be great. If not, no big deal. So we just want you to remember, this isn't just about you. It's about your children. It's about your community. It's about your country. Mm-hmm. Their system only works if you stay asleep. So wake up, stand up, and speak up.
That's all we got.
Thanks a lot, Adam. Thanks a lot for showing up.
No problem. I want to give a shout out to Louisiana for standing.
Oh, yeah. Louisiana. We got another state up and running. I love it. Just a matter of time. We're restoring this lawful American government, whether they like it or not. We need all you to come join the party. Get on some of these sites we was telling you about. Check out your state assembly, or get involved. Get involved in your county assembly.
Free
political
yourself.
status.
Right.
All right, well, that's it. That's all we got for now. We'll see you here soon. Thanks a lot, Adam.
No problem. Don't forget to share this out.
Oh, yeah. Keep sharing it. Keep sharing it, people. They shove it down their throats. I love it. You guys are doing
Ohio
great. I'm really
Press.
proud. I'm really proud to be an American.
Hey, Bell says posse up.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot.